everyone has their own branding as well. Like the way you speak, your knowledge, your level of education, what you do. Although some people might say, I don't care what people think of me. But then if you are a business and you're out there to convince people to give you money for your product or your service, what people think of you really matters.
You're listening to Foodie Canteen. I'm your host, Castle Lim. And in this podcast, I'm sitting down with Southeast Asia's leaders, entrepreneurs, and content creators in the F&B space. You will learn about their trade secrets, or you'll just find them as your next door neighbor. This show is supported by Good Foodie Media. For foodie who wants to connect to the world through food, they curate the best spots to eat and drink in Malaysia, Bangkok, and Singapore. Check them out on Instagram for more. Today, we have someone on the show who created a vaccination-inspired cocktail. His story is an interesting one. Stick around to find out more. Hi, Shen. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
How are you feeling today?
Okay lah. It's middle of the week, so it's, I don't know, I'm feeling
a bit
not tired
too
enough
early for
yet.
you.
Yeah.
So for those who might not have heard about you, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
My name is Shen. I sell t-shirts in the day and I make cocktails at night. At least that's what I used to do before MCO happened.
Okay, so we wanna start from the beginning. Bring us back to 2009 when it all started. Tell us your story.
Okay, so back in 2009, I was an aspiring but clueless rapper wannabe. So I was in the music scene sort of as a rapper, and at the same time I was also a designer. I was studying graphic design, and so I dabbled with designing a bit before. I was still in university, and for one of my rap performances at one of these gigs or shows, I took a blank trucker cap and I scribbled the word Lansi on the cap and wore it for the show. And that's how the idea for this clothing brand called Lansi came about. So this was in 2009. People liked the cap. They asked me about it, like, is it your cap, this and that? And then it hit me that it would be a good idea to launch it as a clothing brand. And so I decided to make a bunch of caps with the word Lansi on them. And that's how my journey into the clothing industry started.
So actually, what does the word Lansi mean? It's in Hokkien, right?
I think it could be Cantonese. I think it's a very Malaysian slang because like you ask someone from Hong Kong what the word Lansi is, they have no idea. I mean, they don't know what it actually means in our context. So in a Malaysian way, it's cocky, I guess the easier way to say it. It's arrogant, it's cocky, but I see it as someone with an aura of attitude, someone with confidence, knowing what they do. That's how I packaged it. That's how I branded the brand.
So back when you wanted to start Lansi, it wasn't as easy as now because there was no Taobao, or the internet isn't very accessible as it is today. We have Shopee and Lazada. You can just start anything at any time. But so how did you manage to roll out your first merchandises?
I think back then, like production wasn't that hard because Alibaba was around. So I think I owe my entire business to Jack Ma because of Alibaba. But selling was very different. So selling the products itself was, of course, not as easy as it was today. So being the naive and clueless kid I hopped on the internet. I hopped on Alibaba and started searching for suppliers who could do caps. So that's how I got my caps made through Alibaba. There was a lot of negotiation going on because, as you know, to produce these things, you need like 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 MOQ. But I managed to find someone and negotiated it to making just 300 caps in 4 different colors. And then, so the selling part was the tough part because, as you said, we didn't have the luxury of Shopee and different platforms to sell. And, people weren't really buying online 10 years, 12 years ago. So I first started by doing the old school way. I took my caps when I received them. I took it around town, around KL, to different shops and asking if these streetwear shops would want to stock them. But being an unknown brand and local brands weren't really a thing back then, so no one really fancied the idea of selling an unheard of brand in their cool streetwear shop. So after trying like a couple of times, I decided to just try selling it online. So Facebook was the thing already back then, but it wasn't as complex as it is now. We don't have Facebook pages, we don't have Facebook shops. So the only thing I could do was Facebook groups, right? So I started a Facebook group, and I named it. Okay, the name is very, very long. Okay, it's like, if 5,000 people join this group, I would tattoo the word Lansi on my body. I started inviting people on it. And I guess that is, I wouldn't say it's viral because it didn't reach like a lot of people, but people started inviting their friends, and just random people joining a group, hoping to see this idiot make a fool out of himself. And it did hit around 3,000 people in a very short span of time, like 2 weeks, 3,000 people. And that's when I started to panic because I didn't think that it would be a thing. So I sneakily switched the name of the group to just Lansi, and I uploaded photos that I took of my caps. So now back then when you change, I think even today, if you change the name of a group, Facebook will notify all the members. So instantly I reached out to 3,000 people. Some people already forgotten why they joined the group, or they joined the group randomly. So they clicked to see what was this group again. And that's when they saw the caps. And out of those 3,000 people, I managed to sell my cap to one person, or at least one or two through that group. So that's how it kind of started.
So do you think like this type of marketing works now? Like if you were still to do this in 2021 in Facebook?
I think it can. I don't know, because back then people weren't really selling things on Facebook. Today, everyone's trying to sell you something. Everyone's on Facebook for business. No one's there for leisure anymore, or news, I guess. But so it might be a bit saturated now, but I still believe in the power of viral marketing. Back when I was in advertising, like my bosses and colleagues always would say, like, you cannot create a viral content. Viral is something that just happens when you hit the right time and right people and right moment, which I agree, but it also takes a bit of creativity and thinking and planning in order to create something that goes viral, right? So I'm not saying viral as in something stupid or something just for entertainment purposes, but viral as in something that people want to share with their friends. And that's like word of mouth marketing in today's era. So yes, it can still work, but it's going to be so much harder because people are so used to people trying to sell them things online, and they wouldn't, be so easily conned into spending their money into just another product.
Yeah, like you said, when you started a Facebook group, even though 3,000 people joined, you managed to sell caps to 1 to 2%. So when was the first wave that Lansi picked up and was able to manage to reach your first round of customers? Was it, I heard, at a festival?
Oh yeah, I think this is already like 2 to 3 years down the road. It was 2012. I would say that was my big break. Prior to that, like 2009, 2012, I've been selling to friends and random friends of friends. So it was really just, I set up my booth at little hip hop shows, selling 2 to 3 caps a night, things like that. I sold some online. But I think the big break was during this Tiger Asian Music Festival. So this was like a huge music event, Chinese music event. They had like LMF, they had the remaining members of Beyond and things like that. And I underestimated the event. I didn't think it would be as big as it would be because I personally don't really listen to Chinese music. So I didn't know what big of a deal it was. So that event held at Sunway Lagoon in 2012, I think it attracted about 40,000 people, pre-COVID days. And then we got the job to be the official merchandise. So we printed the t-shirts with our branding specifically for that event. So it's like the concert t-shirt for the list of bands that were playing on the back and then our branding on the front. So that was a hit. And all the people there, I would say like 99.8% were Chinese. And that really opened us to the Chinese market because before that, our customers were like 90% Malay, because I really believe that back then it was really the Malay kids who would really support a locally made brand. You know, they would be the first in line to buy something that's Malaysian made. So this event opened us up to the other demographic, which is the Chinese demographic. And that set the brand, put it on a different path from there.
So why did you switch from Lansi to later the Swagger Salon, which is a brick and mortar store that you have now in Georgetown?
The Swagger Salon started as an online store, actually, because it was also, so after the whole Facebook thingy that I tried out, when sales started picking up, and by picking up I meant I'm selling like 5 caps now instead of just one. I realized like it wasn't very feasible, because I had a day job then. So right after uni, when I started the caps, then about a year after that, like 2010, I had a job. So having a job sitting in the office all day, I cannot just randomly go to malls and meet up with people to pass them the cap anymore. So my first cap, I met up this guy at Loyat Plaza. Second cap was in like Sunray Pyramid or something like that. So once I had a job, I couldn't do that anymore, right? Because I was in advertising and there was literally no free time in your life. So I started the Swagger Salon, also because no other clothing store wanted to stock my caps, right? So it was supposedly this online streetwear store that would sell my caps, my brands, and other brands who probably face the same problems as I did, getting a retail outlet to sell. Yeah, so this was back then, and really like online shops weren't so common yet. It's not everyone can jump on Shopee, this and that. So I built a website for the Swagger Salon, and that's how it started. I wanted to use the Swagger Salon instead of Lansi because I felt like the Lansi thing might just be a fad. It might be something that people might get sick of after a year. So at least with the Swagger Salon, I can have like an umbrella and 2 different brands under it. But it turned out that until today, people still want the Lansi brand more than anything else. Yeah, so that's how the Swagger Salon came about.
Yeah, and then I visited your shop before. So Swagger Salon in the front. Can you tell us what's in the back?
So yeah, the Swagger Salon is a clothing store on the front. There's a little door at the back. You go through the door, you come out into a whole different world. Narnia. It's a little bar called Backdoor Bodega. So Backdoor Bodega it started as a little pantry bar for us, me and the guys who work at the shop and friends. That's what it started as, like 2016. Now it's a proper cocktail bar.
I see. So, a couple years ago, speakeasy bars were on the rise, with multiple speakeasy bars in Georgetown. However, not many survive until today. What do you think is the secret recipe for Backdoor Bodega still, functioning until today? Right now it's MCO, but you're still selling products and whatnot.
I think I don't have a direct answer for that, but I feel like the few things that made Backdoor Bodega slightly different was, number one, I am not from a bar background. I wasn't a bartender, I wasn't a mixologist. So I guess I saw things differently and I did things differently. I'm not saying that I did all the right things differently, but differently in the sense where when I started the bar, it was more of an idea. So 2016, I was in KL for like 10 years prior to that. So you take for granted all the cocktail bars that are available in KL. So when I came back to Penang, I wanted to go for a cocktail. There were no cocktail bars besides Mishmash. Everywhere else was like beers, clubs. There were no cocktail bars. So I thought then I'll just set up a little cocktail bar. And you have to go back to the origins of a cocktail bar, the speakeasy. So the reason why speakeasies came about was because of the prohibition in the 1920s in the US, right? And cocktails came about because people from speakeasies themselves. So all these hidden bars, they weren't allowed to sell alcohol legally. So they had to think of ways to serve their drinks. That's how, you probably have a Long Island iced tea because it does not look like alcohol, but it actually is an alcohol. So that's how cocktails basically came about. So being the idealistic guy I am and the branding guy I am, I decided that if I were to set up a speakeasy bar, it has to be somewhat of a real speakeasy. So that's how Backdoor Bodega was branded as a pin shop, right? So the initial idea was you come to Backdoor, we are a pin shop, we don't sell drinks, but if you buy a pin at this price, you get a drink for free. So technically that's, how it would work. So I was really happy about the whole concept because it worked that way. But then it also turned out that people really like this little quirky nonsense. And that's why I guess people kept coming because of the whole, oh, you buy a pin. So the whole little concept, which wasn't really the initial idea for me to market the way. In fact, Backdoor Bodega has been really anti-marketing. We've been trying not to market ourselves because it's such a small place and we really don't want to be a mainstream bar since we started.
Let's talk a little bit about your vaccination-inspired cocktails. How did you develop this idea?
I have to give credit to Giap, who's my manager bartender. So he was the one that came up with the vaccine idea. This was right after the this year's lockdown, which was in May, right? And then that point we didn't know how long the lockdown was going to take. So at the end of May, then we had this little meeting and I told them like, okay guys, I think we're gonna get back to doing bottled cocktails because this is gonna last a while. And so we brainstormed for ideas and Giap said, oh, why don't we, do like a vaccine inspired cocktail? And then I found out that the bottles that we were using for our takeaway cocktails, which were introduced to us by CK from Kohli in KL, they were actually legit injection vials. So like for all injections, all the antibiotics that come packaged, it's in those vials. Those are the exact bottles for it. So I felt that it fit perfectly for the concept. And then I got to designing the different brands of the cocktails. And we actually put quite a bit of thought into it. Like, so we have like the Pfizer Meister, which is a play on the Pfizer vaccine. Pfizer is a German brand, so we used all the German ingredients, and that's how Jägermeister came into it. Then there's the Sino Sour, play on the Sinovac, so it's baijiu and all the sour plum kind of Chinese elements. And then there's the AstraZeneca, which is a play on the AstraZeneca, which is British, English or British, I don't know. So there's gin, there's London Dry Gin, there's Pimm's, there's all the English ingredients. That's how we came up with the whole concept.
And how did the community receive it? Did they receive it really well?
Yeah, I think we might have accidentally went viral again, ish. Because I guess it's also because it's something that people want to show. I mean, like, I guess everyone is stuck at home and they want something for their feed, something for their story. So I feel it worked towards our advantage. I also felt like it's very, some people might think it's not a good thing, it's not really the craft or the cocktail or what. But then I feel like it's kind of similar to the Lansi brand, whereby it becomes somewhat of a novelty item, whereby it's something that you really want to share with your friends. So a lot of people, like half the customers that buy the clothes from my store actually are buying it for someone else because they think it's a nice gift for someone that they know. So I think this is also the same case whereby we have a lot of people that are buying for their friends. And also they felt it's something that they are really excited about and they want to share. So that really worked in our favor, I guess, and kept the lights on for the past couple of months so far.
What was the most interesting branding campaign you've done?
Don't blow my own trumpet. I feel like it would be Backdoor because I felt like the most satisfaction really would come from the designs and the branding that I did for Back, because it's when it's your own thing where there's no stress involved, there's no client, so to speak, that you have to fulfill their expectations or requirements. When it's just yours, and it turns out to be a viable business as well. That shows that the branding actually works as well. So that's a different level of fulfillment for me, I would say. Of course, there are other clients that I work with, which I'm happy to see the results, to see the things go up. But then it's not always 100% as something that I do on my own, for my own self, because you won't have someone else's feedback that you don't agree with, that you have to comply to, things like that. So yeah, I would say it's Backdoor Bodega.
And on the other end, what's the most mundane?
Oh, there's a lot of mundane jobs. I mean, I don't really do complete brand. I mean, like there are mundane jobs that I work on still day-to-day basis. Like nowadays, like random writing jobs that I get for weighing machines, commercial weighing machines. I have one which is like for machinery parts, manufacture for machinery parts, things like that, insurance. But you have to understand, although these are mundane and boring, these are industries that make a lot of money that I'll probably never see in my lifetime. But then it's nice to know that, at the end of the day, they still need branding, they still need writing work, which is essential because that's how you build a brand, so to speak. And a business would need proper branding in order to,
Let's talk a little bit about, since you have mentioned, why is branding so important? Regardless if you're a cool brand like Backdoor Bodega or you say can I quote unquote boring brand like a weighing company?
Because I feel like it is a standard that you have to set. So branding is a long-term thing, right? It's not just the logo, it's not just the tagline, it's everything in the name of your company. So a company is one thing, but branding is usually, it's for a product. It's not a product or a service, right? Which a business provides. And sure, you can have a non-branded thing like an OEM thing, but even the manufacturer that produces these things, the OEM things, that supplies all these things, they also need to have a reputation, right? You need to make people know that you are reputable, you are of good quality. And that's where branding comes in, because if you cannot show yourself, it's basically, you can put it as a person, you as a person. Everyone has their own branding as well. Like the way you speak, your knowledge, your level of education, what you do. Although some people might say, I don't care what people think of me. But then if you are a business and you're out there to convince people to give you money for your product or your service, what people think of you really matters. So that's how I would say why branding is important.
What are some tips you can give away for businesses or even individuals who are looking to develop a strong brand image?
Don't go cheap with your designer and copywriter. I would say language. I mean, I'm not trying to say everyone needs to use English for their business, but if you are using English, make sure that it's proper English. If it's Mandarin or anything else, make sure it's a proper language. And, don't go cheap on that. Don't if you want to sell to an English market and you want your branding to be English and you want to, I don't want to pay this guy to write for me, I'm just going to try it myself. No one's going to take you seriously, because if you can't make sure that you are your own brand or own product is perfect, how can you convince people to spend their money on you?
One last question. You've been in this for more than 10 years now, since 2009, from Lansi to Backdoor Bodega to Swagger Salon, and then you're still here doing branding for mundane companies, but also branding for yourself. What is one lesson you say you have learned in this decade?
Always take a deposit first. I would say you need to understand your audience very well. So if it's my own business, that's easy, because I would know who I want to target to. It's easier for me to understand the market. If it's for a client, you have to understand who their customers are, who their potential customers are if they're a new business. So that's how I learned when I started. That's how I got into F&B, actually, because I wasn't from an F&B background. But it's because working with cafes, restaurants for their branding, I started to learn what it takes to run this business. And then when you know what it takes to run the business, only then you can sell the product properly to the people that would actually are the correct consumer for that brand.
Thank you so much, Shen, for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with us. I myself have learned a lot, and I'm sure the listeners are gonna feel the same way too.
Thank you for having me.
Take care.
You too.
You have just listened to Foodie Canteen. Special thanks to Shen for sharing his story. This show is produced by me, your host Castle Lim, and co-written by Mei Wei Kwa. Foodie Canteen podcast is made possible by the excellent team at Good Foodie Media. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Foodie Canteen for more, and follow us for brand new episodes every Friday. Thanks for listening.